Hi, I'm Jonathan Fields, and this is Good Life Project. My guest today is Erin, who is the founder of Girls Fight Back and a really kind of interesting new firm called Evosa. And we're going to kind of track this journey, her evolution personally and through the business. I'll also be hanging out with you today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Welcome to Boulder.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here. It's like my home away from home.
The city is better with you in it, I assure you.
Nah, I don't know.
It got like exponentially more awesome.
It's pretty good without me. But it's a great place because I love Boulder because I feel like I can touch down here and I already know like half the town.
Yep. And you do, and based on the party.
Well, not half, but
we had a good turnout.
But it's a nice community. It's such a great, like, there's so much creative energy here.
Yes.
You know what's interesting about Boulder also is that I've been in different sort of like hyper entrepreneurial communities. There's an energy here where it's almost like all ships rise. Like you go to other communities and it's like it's more competitive.
Yeah.
You're like if we win or if like they win, that means that we can't win. So we're not gonna support them. It seems, at least from the outside in and from knowing a lot of entrepreneurs here, that there's much more of an ethos in Boulder, which is kind of, no, we can all rise together.
Absolutely. I actually work at a co-working space called The Hub, and it's just everybody shares, just everything.
Yeah.
I mean, contacts, documents, people. It's a beautiful energy around here. So.
Yeah, no, and I love it about that. See, if it was right next to an ocean, I would totally live here.
Well, let me tell you something. I would appreciate an ocean here, like just to magically appear.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
So let's kind of jump into your journey because you've had a pretty powerful path and created, well, I guess now two very different ventures, but let's start with the first one. You went through a pretty horrific experience that led you to decide that you wanted to step into a place of power and help. So take me back.
Yeah, so my journey is really, it started in Chicago, where I was born and raised, went to college there at Eastern Illinois University in the middle of a cornfield, middle of nowhere. But the whole time I was just like, I gotta get out of here when I graduate, and I'm just gonna go to New York. Like one-way ticket, I'm gonna do it. So I did it, and I became a TV producer right after I graduated, worked in documentaries.
Right.
And it was just, I thought it was my mission in life, and just living the dream. And then it was actually 12 years ago today.
Oh, wow.
That one of my best friends was murdered, and so it's really interesting that I'm here today because I'm in a really reflective place about that. But it's just the kind of news where you get it, and all of a sudden you just see a different layer of the world. And I think that can work both positively and negatively. You know, you can see a darker version of the world that you live in, you can see a better version.
Right.
But I think sometimes to get to the better version, the lighter version, you have to go through the darker version. And so when I got the news that she was killed, I pretty much like just dropped the phone, and I remember going to this teeny tiny bookshelf in my teeny tiny apartment, and I got out this journal that all of my friends had given me when I graduated from college. And everybody had written me this letter, or just had taken a page and wrote me a letter in it because they knew I was going to be moving to New York and they wanted me to have one place to go for love and support. So, and I remember that she wrote me a letter in there. And as I read through it, it's this big bubbly handwriting, but the last sentence was, "Weed, I will never forget you." My last name's Weed. You got to own it or you're taunted for eternity. You know, so I am Weed. Still am Weed. I'm married, kept the name because it's awesome. But so it was really that sentence, though, where I realized that I was going to spend the rest of my life not forgetting her. And so a lot of things happened, but basically I just started realizing that a lot of young women were really afraid, and that it didn't need to be like that. I really thought that we needed more education. We needed to do something. And so after her wake and funeral, I ended up flying back to New York and trying to resume my life. And the world kind of expects you to just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right?
So I want to stop you for a second, though.
Yeah.
You said you realize that a lot of young women are afraid. So go deeper with that. Afraid of who? Afraid of what?
You know, that's an interesting question. I think it's a huge missing piece of women's empowerment. Let me give you a specific example. The night before Shannon's wake, we were sitting around this campfire. I had a big bonfire in my parents' backyard because I just wanted us to be able to talk before we went through that really horrific experience. And for the first hour or so, we're talking about Shannon. Who could have done this? The guy who killed her hadn't been caught yet, so there was just so many rumors flying around. But as the evening progressed, we stopped talking about Shannon, and for literally hours, into the wee hours in the morning, all of my friends were sitting around just talking about what scared them. And they were saying things like, the worst part of my day is when I have to leave my internship and walk to my car in the parking deck, or when I have to take a shower when I'm home alone, or if my partner or my roommate goes away for the weekend, I have to sleep in the apartment by myself.
And this is stuff that nobody talks about before.
Nobody talks about it. And I started thinking to myself, okay, all of these things, what they all have in common is that they're just everyday normal things just to get through life. And I also started realizing, I was like, men, I don't really think sit around campfires talking about this stuff.
Men don't talk about anything.
Yeah.
Campfires or not.
I don't know. But, you know, like, you imagine, like, dude, I hate taking a shower when I'm home alone, you know? Like, I just don't think that happens very often. And so I started realizing, you know, like, if we're afraid of these fundamental everyday little things, what else are we afraid of? What risks are we not taking? What businesses are we not starting? What places are we not moving to? Because at the end of the day, we're scared of being raped or murdered. I mean, that's a pretty profound thing that no one says out loud.
Yeah.
So that's really when I kind of identified the problem. And then the solution came about just because I personally wanted self-defense. I mean, a lot of times people call me and they think I'm this big hero for starting this thing, and I'm not. This started out of me feeling afraid, me not being able to sleep through the night after she was murdered, me not being able to come home from a grocery store without checking all my closets to make sure no bad guys in there. Don't know what I was going to do. Someone came out of my closet. But that's why I wanted to learn how to fight, because a lot of women have these habits that we just do things to make ourselves feel more safe, but it's not actually making us more safe.
Right. I mean, so would that include basically limiting your life in order to be safer?
I think so. I think that's exactly what happens.
So it's like you just stop doing things.
You stop doing things, and I don't think it's totally conscious. You're just doing things to make yourself feel more comfortable, and comfort comes from not being in a place of anxiety. But like, how messed up is that we're like pursuing these lives just to not be anxious?
Right.
You know, I don't think that's living the life that we're intended. You know, the good life, as you say.
Yeah.
So I think that sometimes when we get trapped in these ruts, the way out is education and empowerment, and delivering that education and empowerment in a way that people can accept it. So I started training with all of the craziest self-defense gurus in the world. There was no one I didn't train with. There's no certification I don't have in the country at this point.
So it started out as you wanting to learn for yourself.
Totally.
Okay, how do I defend myself?
Totally.
You know, God forbid something happens.
If it goes down, like, I want to rise up.
Right.
You know, that's all I really wanted. I wanted, like, if I came home and I checked my closet and there was someone in there, I wanted to know how to regulate, you know?
Right.
Like, just to be able to get my mojo back,
Yeah.
you know? So once you put real knowledge behind something, then all of a sudden you feel more powerful. And when you feel more powerful, then you have more options. When you have more options, then you start living the life you're truly intended.
Yeah.
So I studied with a bunch of people, got all the certifications, and then what I did, I started off just teaching classes.
I'm going to jump in again. I'm sorry.
Yeah, do it.
Was there a moment where you started to realize that you were no longer in fear of doing these things that were making you anxious? Where you're like, oh, I'm not checking my closet anymore, or I'm like, you know, whatever it is. Was it just a moment where, or was this like a gradual thing where you just, like, how did you experience the evolution as you become stronger in learning how to really take care of yourself?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I don't remember an exact moment, but I started to feel a shift inside where I shifted kind of away from feeling small, and I shifted towards feeling responsive. So I no longer dreaded the things that could happen. It was more like, okay, if that goes down, here's my plan, which can really only come from information,
Right.
you know? So that's kind of why I went the educational route.
Right. So from there, it doesn't just stop with you, though.
Right. So I created this seminar because I figured I was a sorority girl in college. I was forced to go to programs in college. I knew that they were paid because I was one of those like student activities weirdos that just like ran everything at the school. And so I was like, they get paid to share information and make people's lives better. Sign me up for that. So I created a seminar that was part stand-up comedy and part ass-kicking. Put them together, and it was kind of like, you know, if Dane Cook hooked up with Kesha at a, I don't know, roller derby convention, and they had like a love child named Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you know? So it became like, it was really kind of taking on this scary topic, but making it kind of sexy, funky, cool, and kind of hilarious.
Yeah.
Which really takes the energy down.
Right, and I guess because, you know, part of it is you want to actually make this, you want to give real information.
Totally.
But at the same time, you don't want it to feel like, okay, you know, it's another thing that I have to do. Like
Right.
you want to make it so people are saying, okay, I want to do this.
Yes.
And I guess, you know, like humor and all this other stuff actually.
And the hilarious part about being a Girls Fight Back speaker, and I now have a team of them that give these presentations, it's been seen by over 1 million people, so it's been a huge hit. But the hilarious part is that no one ever wants to come. Because we're talking to this demographic that feels kind of untouchable.
Right.
They don't want to be there. They want to be at home watching reality TV, you know? And so it's kind of a regular occurrence that I'll go to the bathroom before these big college gigs, and there'd be like 3,000 people in a ballroom. And so I'm just in the bathroom, you know, doing my thing. And then all these girls come in, they're like, I'm so pissed to be here. Like, why do we have to go to this stupid safety speaker and stuff? And I live for it. Like, I love it. And sometimes I'll go out on stage and be like, hey, you know what? I get that you guys are forced to be here, and I know that because I overheard it in the bathroom. Someone's all pissed about being here, but here's what we're gonna do. I hear you, I respect your time, I'm not gonna waste your time. You give me 90 minutes of your life, I will teach you how to kick some serious ass if anybody ever messes with you. Is that fair? And immediately you have a room of 3,000 people engaged. So they're like, this is not something I'm forced to be at. It's something that I'm going to get value from, and she gets me.
Right.
So understanding your audience became a really huge part of Girls Fight Back, because you're taking on a rough topic for a rough demographic of people who don't fundamentally feel at risk, and they're participating in a lot of risky behaviors.
Right. So let me ask you this then. I mean, girls who don't fundamentally feel at risk, yet when you're at the campfire after the funeral, you start to realize that everybody feels fundamentally at risk. Is there something that happens between like the time that you're in college and the age that you were at when you were around the campfire, saying like where everybody's sort of owning the fact that, you know, there are a lot of times where we're really scared, where you sort of like your own mortality starts to guide and change your behavior?
Yeah, this is such a fascinating topic. This what is risk and what is perception of risk. And it's like you get a bunch of girls together to talk, any women of any age really, together. They all have different anxieties, but there's this different level of acceptance of what is likely to happen. Like, for example, in college, the most likely thing to happen to you is that you're going to be raped by someone that you know. Who wants to think about that? That's not an awesome thought. So what they do is they transfer all of their fears to the guy in the hoodie that's jumping out of the bushes, just escaped from a mental institution or something. You know, like they come up with this crazy story, and you know he's machete wielding, and he's in a creepy van, and he's got friends, and you know it's like, so they go to this hyper dramatic place. So it's like we have these fears, but we almost don't want to accept the thing that's most likely to happen to us. You know. So it's like it's almost like a lot of people who come to our program, they're ready to get prepared for the thing that's probably never going to happen to them. But what we do is we kind of treat it like flavored cough syrup. You know, like the information is the cough syrup that nobody really wants. But most women don't want to learn to fight. Most men don't want to learn to fight. I mean, like people just want a peaceful life for the most part, I think. I don't like fighting. I still hate it every time I have to go fight. But if you can put some cherry flavoring in that cough syrup, you can take nearly any message and make it go down smooth.
So how do you actually go from having this idea, because there are a lot of people that have an idea, and a lot of people who are cause-driven and believe in it, and there are a lot of people who do nothing with it.
Yeah.
You know, and you're somebody who said, no, this not only needs to like happen, but it needs to happen on a level which is different, radical, new, impactful. And I guess since 2001, over 1 million people have experienced this presentation.
Yeah.
How do you go from this is what's in my head to, no, here's a 90-minute presentation, bam, ready to go? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think allowing yourself to put out a shitty first version and not needing it to be perfect right away. I mean, I remember the first Girls Fight Back presentation I ever did, and it was very well received, but it was, I can't watch it now. I physically recoil. If it comes out, I can't watch myself, period. I can't watch this probably, but yeah, it was rough to watch, but it got it out there, and it connected with people. So I think sometimes as people in the public eye, whether you're just a mommy blogger or whether you're a famous person, it doesn't really matter. You can't really hold on to the content. You have to really observe the connection that it makes with people. And that's what it's all about. It's not about you. It's about us being vessels for information, for inspiration, to get your audience where they need to go.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point, because I mean, I feel this as a speaker, as a writer, as like a content creator. It's very hard to get out of the fact that it's not about you.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, for me, it's not an ego attachment thing. It's more a fear of judgment thing.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty risk tolerant. You know, like I start companies, I take actions, I do stuff. But, you know, it's not that I don't have that voice in my head. It's just that I've trained myself, equipped myself with a whole bunch of sort of like skill sets and practices that let me tell myself a different message and still act.
Yeah.
But so many people shut down at that point.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I feel like, I mean, people are so limiting. Like, people die. We screw up. We make mistakes. It's like if you encapsulate an entire idea into a person and you can't live outside of it, it's just never going to go that far. But an idea, that can grow, it can scale, it can multiply, it can take different forms, it can, you know, and that's what I'm really driven by. Whether, I mean, it started off the past 12 years being the women's safety issue, but it's now figuring out, you know, how can we take that idea and scale it?
Right.
You know, teach people the tools on how to think bigger than themselves. I mean, I trained a team of speakers to give my presentation, which was a very hard thing to do. Like when you're a creator, as you
it's like taking your baby. And
it's like, here, take my infant.
Especially
newborn.
like this, because this came as such a personal experience for you. It's like, no, you've got to do it right. This means something.
Yeah. Well, I wish I could say that it was like some sort of decision that was very enlightened, but it wasn't. I was knocked out. I couldn't travel nearly as much as I used to. I was pregnant with my first baby, and I just didn't want that road warrior life, which I'm sure you've experienced. I mean, just being on the road 250 days out of the year is not awesome. No. Not awesome. And so when I realized that, also furthermore, when you're pregnant and talking to a bunch of college girls, you're like their worst freaking nightmare. They're like, oh, I can't even look at her. Oh my God, is that going to happen to me? But
brings up a whole different fear.
I know. They're not even listening to what I'm saying. They're staring at the possibility of pregnancy.
That's too funny.
So I knew I had to eradicate myself for many reasons. But that was the best thing we ever did, because now we have a whole team of people. We're operating in India and Pakistan. And what we realize is that this idea, it's not about self-defense. It's not about how to stay safe in America. It's about how to own your power. It's about how to own your voice, how to own your body, and how to know how to exert all of these things in appropriate situations. And that is completely translatable into every language, every culture. I mean, we have a speaker on the border of Iran and Pakistan. I mean, super, super conservative. I was frankly a little nervous to teach her our content because it's a little... edgy. I didn't want anybody like getting murdered over this, and it's really, that's the culture there is, that could happen. And I remember her telling me when we were going through the DVD and I was doing all the training and everything, we make some jokes about creepy vans and stuff. It's just funny. You know, when you see a creepy van, you just think stuff. Whatever. And so we make some jokes in the program about it. She's like, in Pakistan, we don't have creepy vans, but we have creepy bikes. Whoa. Okay, we're doing the creepy bike joke, So it's like, it's not about every word we write or everything we put out there. It's how does an idea connect with people? Yeah.
And the need to really morph it to hit, like, as cultural shifts happen.
Exactly.
All over the place. Did you think when you started this that it would, like, when you started, did you say, we need to reach 1 million women? Did you have big, giant aspirations, or like, what were you saying? I just want to do this, and whatever happens, happens.
I never had a numerical goal attached to this whatsoever. To be completely honest with you, I recently was doing some retrospective work and looking back on the past 12 years of Girls Fight Back, and somebody asked me a question like, why did you start this? Like, I know your friend died and everything, but like, why? Really, what was the moment? And I pinpointed the moment, and it was at the wake for Shannon after she was killed, and I was passing through the line, and I mean, there were hundreds and hundreds of people there, so it took forever. And so I'm waiting in line to pay my respects to her family, and I met her mom for the first time, literally over her dead body. And I mean, I instantly connected with this woman, but I had not known her. She didn't know me. She had heard of weed before, whatever questionable way. But when I met her, I said the typical cliche stuff. I'm so sorry. There's nothing good to say here. How can I help? Blah, blah, blah. And she said to me, she's just, I will never forget this. When she said, you know what, Weed? You think as a parent that having your child be murdered is the worst possible thing that can happen. And guess what? It gets worse. There's something else I'm terrified of. She goes, I am terrified that after all this is over, Shannon's going to be forgotten. And I think that's the moment. Because I was like, I can't control violence. I'm not going to end violence in my lifetime, but I can make sure she's never forgotten. So I think that sometimes, as far as goals, you can pick that one little piece of a much bigger thing. And you know what? That girl will never be forgotten. I've written a book. She's in the Library of Congress. Like, I got it filed away. And you know what? At the end of the day, I started this for her mom.
Yeah.
I started for her mom. And when I had that realization, I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy. But it's true. And it does. I don't think sometimes when we start these things, it has to be some big, crazy, monumental, mind-blowing thing. Just like, wow, mom's really sad. She's really scared her daughter's going to be forgotten. I can do something about that. I'll do that. It took off, and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah. And it sounds like also that, what you did with Girls Fight Back is extraordinary, and I guess it continues on to this day. And the interesting thing is that you're evolving also personally, but also it seems like you haven't forgotten it, but you're kind of like, as you were saying, you start to realize this is really about empowerment and finding your voice and confidence and all these other things, and you start to evolve that sort of into an interesting professional journey.
Yeah.
So talk to me about sort of like how it all ties into where you're going right now.
Yeah, totally. So one of the things that I did with Girls Fight Back is I have a PR background and a documentary background, so I'm a storyteller. I'm good at packaging things so that they make sense to people, they connect with people, they're marketable. So what we did with Girls Fight Back is really making the show, the seminar, doing the book, all the web stuff, I mean, whatever. And we really kind of created an ecosystem so that it could thrive in all its different ways. And I think that is the future of thought leadership, or heart leadership, however you lead. But really taking ideas and packaging them in a way that's consumable for people. And I didn't really realize I was doing this over the past 12 years. It was just how a business needed to run, because it's a business and it's a profitable business, and we've done well at it. But I started doing TED coaching, so for TED Talks. And a few of the talks did insanely well. One of your guests, Erica Napolitano, was one of my first clients, and she gave this ridiculous talk. And I mean, ridiculous in a way that I've had standing ovations before, but I've never been able to experience the joy of one until I saw hers from backstage. And I mean, we were both moved to tears. It was so powerful because she had spoken her truth. And so that process of teaching her some of the tools that I've used to speak my truth over the years, and then after the speech, when things started really blowing up for her and for many of the other people, really figuring out how do you make a business out of that so that more people can be reached by what you know and what you believe. So this kind of has turned into my new company, which I'm so excited about. It's called Evoso, which is kind of a made-up blended word of Evolution Society. And really, we serve public figures. And a public figure can be a blogger, it can be someone who's on TV, a celebrity, an author, someone like yourself. There are interesting challenges about being a public person, and and I believe that thought leadership is the new marketing. I mean, that we have to build trust, we have to give, we have to care about our audience, and we have to lead with
care about the audience.
You're like, what? I don't care.
Of course I care. I love you. And it's interesting. I mean, and it also used the phrase thought leadership or heart leadership. Deconstruct that a little bit for me.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think thought leadership is just kind of a toolish phrase. I hate it, but it's really the best thing I can come up with.
So I actually feel the same way about the phrase personal development. I've been called like a personal development person or blogger, right? And I'm like, I have no rational basis for just not liking it. There's just something about it.
I hate it too. I hate most terms though. Like I hate cliche. I don't like putting things in boxes, but my marketing brain says you got to put something in boxes because then otherwise people can't find you.
Right.
But heart leadership is kind of the way I've made peace with the thought leadership thing, because I think some people lead with their ideas that come from their brains, but I think many more people lead with the stuff that comes from their essence. I call it their truth. And a big part of when people come to Evoso and they want our firm to either build their platform of influence or they want to get coaching or academy training to do it themselves, the first thing that we do is I call it a truth extraction. So it sounds like a dentist or something much worse.
It's like picturing you in a chair wired up to all sorts of like stuff, being shocked when you're not being.
He immediately goes to torture. Amazing.
Of course.
Yes. So you got to
movies.
extract the truth, because what I've found is that every single person I've ever worked with, whether they come to me to write a speech or a book or whatever, there is something much bigger and much simpler over the thing they're actually creating.
Yeah, no doubt.
And so my goal in that truth extraction, which is like a 2-hour process, not a big deal, is to walk out of there with a 7-word or less statement about what drives you in all areas of your life. I mean, and it is umbrella over family, over work, over money, everything.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it's a lot of the work that I've sort of come to myself recently is, and similar topics but different languaging. It's just around the notion of alignment.
Yes.
But you got to align around your truth.
Yes.
Or your essence. I use that exact same word. And but you can't do that until you know it.
Yes.
And if you don't do it, everything that you build on top of it will always not quite be right, and people will feel it. They'll sense it. You may not be able to really get a beat on why. People may not feel like they just know there's some disconnect somewhere. They're not quite connecting with you, your company, your brand, whatever it is. They can't identify why, but something's not lighting up right. And you're not achieving the impact and success, whatever your metric is. Because you didn't do that, 5-10 steps back. Like you didn't do just that first grounding work around it and then build around that. So it's I imagine a lot of your work is kind of like taking people back through a process and saying, like, even if you show up with a substantial X, you know, but you showed up here meaning that there's a problem. So we need to like peel the onion and go back and back and back and back.
Yeah, or even if there's not a problem, like I work with a lot of really successful people, like really successful people that still feel lost. They have tons of money, tons of fame, tons of all the stuff, but there's still there's that truth missing. And the minute you shine a light on it, it just, everything seems to fall into place.
Right.
I mean, you can even keep your day job if you hate your day job and you're convinced that that's in violation of your truth and it's not your purpose and all this stuff. If you can figure out your truth and work that into whatever situation, it's an unhappy marriage, unhappy job, or whatever, and you can just shift your truth, or you can like embrace your truth, but shift your life to meet that.
Right.
All of a sudden, things are cool.
I think that's one of the reasons why people don't adopt it. Also, I think people think that if they acknowledge that this is my truth, that this is my reality, it's going to cause so much disruption in my life. I don't want to endure it. So I'm just not going to even acknowledge the fact that this is the real me. Because I don't want to have to go through that.
Yeah. When in reality, it's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
It's like, it is, like
so
when you know
it's
your
like freedom.
truth, it's like, yeah, you can breathe. And it's like, it feels, there's so many people that walk out of these truth extractions thinking they're coming into a dentist appointment or a torture appointment, and they walk out just being like, I have never felt so light. You know? And it's just like, lightness equals ease. Ease equals purpose.
Right.
You know?
Do you find a universal pattern? Not universal, because obviously there's nothing for everybody. But are there common, really strong truths that you see come up on a regular basis that people aren't owning? Or is it just so independent and so personal?
I have never worked with a client that has the same truth as someone else.
Interesting.
Never. I've worked with a lot of people at this point. It's a fairly new company, but I mean, we've done a lot and no one's just the same. Some have.
You're surprised by that at all or not?
I am actually. Now I haven't really thought about it, but now, I mean, that's mathematically curious.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting too for me because the last, and you know this because you watched the show, the last question I generally ask everybody is like, what does it mean to live a good life? And I don't think we've had the same answer. There've been nuances, and that's been actually a huge surprise for me. In the back of my head, I'm like, I bet if we hit episode number 10, there's going to just be, okay, that was the same thing as episode 2.
Yeah.
Everybody really, they have their own lens. And it's been kind of fascinating for me to experience that.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So tell me more about the type of people. And what fascinates me also is that you have this, is the evolution of Erin. And that you're not leaving anything behind. You're taking each step and saying, okay, this is not quite right for me or where I am now, but I've got amazing skill set, amazing experience, so let me build. And it sounds like also along the way, and tell me if this is true or not, that have you discovered your own truth?
Yes. My truth is speak your truth, change the world. I mean,
so when did that come to you?
I didn't put myself through a truth extraction. I invented that for everyone else's pain and pleasure, but for me, it was something that I heard myself saying a lot. It was me having these conversations with people that had to give the talk of their life and completely freaking out about it. I have to take a TED stage. It's going to be simulcasted around the world. Okay, that's okay. That's what's happening. But what's your truth? How can you leave that audience better than you found them? You don't need to save them. How can you just make them a little bit better? What do you know that they don't know? Like minimizing that a little bit. So
the idea is if you stand before them in your truth,
yes,
that's enough. Everything else is gravy.
And you will change the world. You will. And, a lot of times people say that, if I change just one person, which we've now identified my extreme distaste for cliche. It gives me the hives. But, I buy that. And it's not because of just that one person. It's because when you change that one person, whose life are they changing? And whose life are they changing? And I mean, I started Girls Fight Back for one mom. And 1 million people later, there you got it. All these people know how to fight. And I'm not saying I'm a hero about that. But I mean, that was my goal, was to change one person without even realizing it. So there's power in that trickle effect.
Right. So what's driving you? Like, what's your why now? Has it evolved?
I have shifted into this, it's weird going from a company like Girls Fight Back where you're literally kicking ass for a living. I have fought so many people, and to shift to this new space of, I work mostly with founders, with CEOs, with chief evangelists, with authors, people that are very high profile, but sometimes can be very isolated. And I have I just had a baby this past year, so I have 2 kids now.
Congrats.
Well, thank you. It's been fun, but it's like I feel like the feminine energy that used to be more like the badass, fighter chick. I do roller derby. Just like I mean these sorts of things. But what's happening is I'm just seeing this evolution happening more towards like I want to take care of these people. Like I see it as I see almost these people as their bodies are like this precious cargo, and inside is something so valuable. And so I feel like my feminine energy is going a little bit more nurturing and helping these people getting that precious cargo safely to shore and delivering it to people and making the world better. So that's kind of my evolution, I think, and it's been an interesting process.
So the why is really more to help deliver these people to this place. Yeah, I think that's a good way to So what do you get out of that? I'm curious. Like, how does it make you feel?
And it's so weird to say this as someone who's been on stage for 12 years. I mean, usually it's easy for you to just get used to the limelight, the da-da-da-da, but I have gotten so much satisfaction from helping these people, not only just having them give amazing speeches or put out these amazing books that are resonating with people, but just their own light when they discover their truth. It's amazing to me how many put together people who everybody sees from the outside just have it all going on, how they just don't. And to help them shift their story from their truth, I mean, that's something I feel really strong about, is understanding the difference between what happens to you or what success looks like to you or what your physical body is or whatever. That's your story. That's not your truth. That's not who you are.
Yeah, interesting.
And that's so freeing,
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. There's I wear in my neck, it's actually on my wedding band too. In Buddhism, there's something called the four immeasurables, and one of them translates to appreciative joy, and there's a Yiddish word called nachis, which is sort of like the same thing. And what it is it's the feeling that you get when somebody who you care about so unconditionally succeeds that you experience it as your own success.
Yes.
And it's like for a child.
Yes.
You see your kid, succeed at something after struggling, you just burst into tears as if you just succeeded that same way. And it seems like you're sort of getting that same thing, which is beautiful, because to be in a position where you're so service oriented and care so much about the people that you're working with that you can feel that through them.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I think one of the reasons that I've been such a big fan of yours is just like it's like this belief that we're all interconnected, that we all can make each other better, that's our job, and that when he's better or she's better, you're better.
Yeah.
Like this separateness is not serving anyone, and I think the world is responding to that. There's shifts happening in the world right now.
Yeah, I think there is, and
it's because I think the world is asking us to get back to this.
I think so. I mean, it's funny. We're had a lot of interesting conversations around this lately, and there's so much disruption now. But I think people are really understanding. I think when there was mass economic disruption, in 2008, 2009, people were just freaking out and in pain, and trying to find out. Okay, they're looking at. Okay, this is economic, and there's been this evolution that I've been feeling, especially just in a lot of conversations that I've been having. It's not just economic. There's something bigger happening. It's not just the U.S. There's like something socioeconomic, global, cultural, ethnic. There's a mass shaking going on in the world, in society, and people are either freaked out and terrified, want to hide under the covers, or people are like, let's have a conversation about this. And more, I think I see at least, maybe it's just the people I surround myself with. I don't know. I hope it's not, but it feels like people are more leaning into the let's have a conversation about this side of things, which is step one for a bigger shift.
Well, and that's a great example of this whole shakedown about money. I mean, what a gift this has been to our world, I think, because we can't have those kinds of conversations that you're talking about until we feel a little bit vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that money stuff shakes everybody to the core who's affected by it. And then, you get a little naked, and now we can have like a real conversation. As long as you have that safety or that feeling of safety, it's hard to change anything, and I've seen that in my work for the literal side of safety with Girls Fight Back. It's very transferable.
Yeah.
What safety can be such a good thing, but I think safety can be a bad thing or a limited thing.
Yeah, I mean, safety, I think in terms of mortal fear or mortal danger, that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
But safety in terms of stopping you from a sense of fear and anxiety from actually doing what you're here to do.
Yeah.
Such a limiting thing.
Yeah.
So How far into Avosa are you right now? It's pretty new, right?
It is pretty new. So it's not even a year old,
Wow.
but it's taken off so fast. So, I mean, just our TED Talk coaching side of the business is blowing up all over the place. So we do Skype stuff. So I've been coaching speakers now all over the world.
That's amazing.
It's been so cool.
People come to me all the time asking for TED coaches, so now I know.
Don't send them my way. I mean, it's but you know what? I don't really coach them on. I don't think I've coached a single person on their presentation style.
Right.
I've never told someone like, don't move that awkward way or whatever. Like, own it, rock it, do that thing that makes you weird, and just get up on stage and just say the thing you need to say, and then it'll be fine. And almost every single one of these people have gotten standing ovations, and it's not because of my coaching or them being perfect. It's about them being given permission to be who they are, say what they need to say, because that is the thing that the audience needs to hear. And then the audience, they're just giving the standing O because they're saying thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that.
So how do you get them, because obviously it's not about you giving them permission, it's about them giving themselves permission.
Yes.
How do you get a person to that place?
Well, I think a lot of people need that exterior just validation. You know, usually I tell my TED clients or Ignite clients to come to me with their shitty first draft of their speech. I want to know just what their vibe is, what their style is, what they think they need to say. And then I read through it, and then I start just interviewing them. So they don't really realize that we're in like a speech coaching thing. It's more like, so why do you want to talk about this topic? Or, you know, I just start asking simple questions. I don't feel like they're that probing. But usually what you start to see is just some trends. Like, oh, I did this because of this. And, you know, I wanted to, like I recently coached a gal who, she's a really big name in the social media space. And she ended up giving her TED Talk on depression, which is something that she's dealt with. And it's Amber Naslund. It's TEDx Peachtree. She did a phenomenal job. But it's so interesting to me how someone who's become such a tycoon in the whole social media, internet space, really what her truth is all about connection.
Yeah.
Being connected to people helped with her anxiety and depression that she struggled with like a demon her whole life. Like, how cool is that? You know, to understand that, to illuminate that, and then to know that that's your truth, to know that that's your story of, oh, I've dealt with this, and to know that your truth is all about connection, and then to relay that in a package that's so approachable and consumable for a room of people.
Yeah.
Then you started a conversation, and then what does that conversation turn into? Maybe that kind of turns into some stigmas being broken, to some action being taken.
Yeah, and fundamentally it turns into also you maybe finally walking out the door and feeling that you're fully expressed in the world.
Yes. Yes.
You know, and how much pain comes from not being in that place.
Oh, you were so right. You're so right. I've had so many people who've been through like bad things, and they come to me for help. How'd you talk about your friend dying and all stuff? And it's hard, but it's so healing. It's healing for you. It's healing for the world. Yeah. You know?
I mean, we did a number of months back. Alex Jamison, who was the vegan chef in Super Size Me, we did an episode where she came out to the world that she was no longer vegan, and that same day she wrote this long blog post, kind of like explaining what was going on in her life. And if you know Alex, she's a very genuine, loving, sweet, good person. It took massive heat, like it was fierce and ugly for a window of time. And, you know, it's not the easiest thing to get through, but once you move through that window, you know, all of a sudden, you know, this was the real her.
Yeah.
You know, living in the world, and the people that stayed with her, and there were many, the people that rallied to who she like owned up to being, were so much more fiercely connected to that new self, because like now she was standing in a truth, and they were so fiercely behind her because of that.
Yeah.
That you know, now she gets to move forward in life.
Yeah.
Being who she is, and it takes so much less energy to operate.
Totally. And it's such a unique experience now that more and more people are public figures, because anybody can be published.
Yeah, I guess it's true. It makes it.
And more and more people are dealing with that kind of stuff. And the crazy thing about branding and marketing and all these things, it's almost like it's gotten so good that sometimes you can put yourself in this path to not be allowed to evolve, you know? And it's just kind of a problem. Evolve the wrapper, but like keep the core where it is. Totally. Yeah. It's like when you branded yourself so well as the vegan chef. I mean, like, what? You're going to be the not vegan chef? Like, what's that about? You're not allowed to change. And I've gotten a lot of that kind of stuff with Girls Fight Back, because even though I'm the founder of it, I've stepped aside from it, you know,
Right.
so someone else is running it. And I think founders especially, I have a very soft place in my heart for founders, because just to create something from any sort of inspiration is hard, but taking care of yourself, like a lot of nonprofit founders, a lot of company founders, and they just kind of get co-branded with these businesses, right. And then everybody's like, okay, you work in technology, so you are technology. You were in hedge funds, so you are money. Like, you know, that's like, not your thing.
No, it's like that was a chapter in my story. That was a part of it.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's not. I mean, I've experienced that, and I will continue to experience that. As I think anyone who's honest.
Yeah.
You know, like unless you stop growing, you're always gonna. Even careers now. I think the last stat I saw is like the average person is gonna have 8 to 10 different careers in their lives. Mm-hmm. You know, not jobs, careers.
Yeah.
You know, and I think if you're really honest, you know, and you're interested in growing, you got to open yourself to the unknown. But at the same time, you know, leaning into the unknown, but standing in your truth.
Totally.
You can kick some serious ass. And the world will rally to you in a way that it would never rally to you if they sense that disconnect, but can't put their finger on what's not right.
Yeah, I think the world wants to be vulnerable. I mean, I think you had Brene Brown on your show. I mean, it's like people are hungry for this. She was so surprised by this epic success she's had. Yeah. But people are hungry. Totally they want to be told you can be you can be imperfect, you can be wrong, you can be broke, you can be divorced. People are so hungry to be okay, you know, even though they're not perfect.
Yeah, no, I mean, she's an amazing example.
Yeah.
So then the name of this project is A Good Life Project. When I offer that phrase out to you, to live a good life, what comes up?
3 words. This is how I make most decisions in my life. It's ease, abundance, and amusement. If something doesn't feel easy, and I'm not saying I'm not willing to work hard, but you know how when something flows, that ease, that to me is the universe saying yes. You know, when we fight, when it's like a grind, when it's hard, I'm letting go of the hard stories being the defining stories. And I think in our world, you know, you got all these crazy stories, like start a company and I didn't sleep and I went bankrupt and, you know, well, okay, you can do it that way, but I'm not going to do it that way anymore. I'm going for ease. Second thing is abundance. In abundance, and whether it's finances, abundance, whether it's reaching people, abundance, whether it's people whose lives you can affect and change and whose lives they can affect and change. I'm all about thinking about scale. And then finally, amusement. That's probably my big word to answer your question. Like, you know, how to really live a good life. I think we just need to stop taking ourselves so seriously. And everybody else. I mean, it doesn't mean that there aren't serious, scary things happening in the world, but there's an energy around amusement that makes everything a little bit more approachable. And that's how I try to live my life, and that makes me happy.
Yeah, I like that. It's like the trilogy.
Yeah, you like that?
Yeah.
Trilogy.
It may need to be 3 books now for you.
Yeah, right? No, there you go.
Very cool. I've enjoyed the conversation. I love what you're building, and I love watching you evolve, and I love where you're going with all of this.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for spending time today.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. So my guest today has been Erin Weed, who is the founder of Girls Fight Back and now Avoso. I'm Jonathan Fields, signing off for Good Life Project.